Hello.
Hello. Hi, Kirsten. Hello, everyone. We're back with
Hi.
our conversations. And more than that, Kirsten, we made it. We're at the
Number
last
8.
step along the way. We're at number 8. We're doing now.
EMCC.
core competencies are check. Now we're
Yes.
finishing also EMCC standards are check. And then we move towards team coaching. Before
Exactly.
that, we look today at evaluation. It's called the last one from the EMCC row of standards for individual coaching. Evaluation. I think evaluation in these terms has so many nuances, and we'll see also when we look at the capability indicators. One thing that I would just do at the very beginning is to just bring the kind of like the definition on what do we look at this competency as. Gathers information on the effectiveness of their practice and contributes to establishing a culture of evaluation of outcomes. Now, I think there's different elements and different aspects of how can we look at these outcomes. And I know that you want to touch upon a bit upon them. And I'm really excited about that conversation that will be generated, because every time when I ask people how were the other conversations that we had on the previous standards or core competencies, I get the feedback of, that were some ideas that I haven't thought of them in that direction. So I know that today will be other things being brought to our attention. And if somebody says, what other conversations were there, scroll in the feed of LinkedIn, Facebook, or whatever this one platform you're watching it right now. You'll find also the other recordings. And if that makes it more easier for you, go on YouTube on our Solutions Academy channel. More than that, if you want, just click that button of just staying, comes to me the word in German with abonnieren. Just subscribe to it.
Subscribe. One of my favorite YouTubers who is just really, I mean, it's pretty mindless but fun, is Charlotte Dobre, and she always says subscribe. So subscribe. We have 750 now as of April 2023. So once we get 1,000, we're going to have a big celebration.
Thank you for getting us to the 750. And I'm saying, and Kirsten, I think you're agreeing with me, the reason why we're saying we're going to subscribe is, and we know for sure that we plan to have a lot more conversations also on the team coaching competences, and then moving also to supervision. We're going to engage in all of these things that are related and important to our profession. Hence, if you want to make sure that you have a bit of time at any point and just go like, oh, what else have they spoken about and what can I learn from that? Just you will have a reminder from subscribing to it. Okay, that was the big introduction. You know where to find now videos from the past, and also you'll know where to search for something else. Go to the YouTube channel. Today we take a look at the EMCC core standards number 8, and for this one is evaluation. Definition we've mentioned already. What we want to do is take a look at what we understand from it, indicators, how do we reflect, same structure. So I'll stop and I'll pass it to you, Kirsten.
And I think it's really cool to see the capability indicators for evaluation, because it starts with foundation levels, monitors and reflects on the effectiveness of the whole process. So kind of in a sense is self-aware, thinks about, was this a good session? Was the whole process a good process? Something like that. It also says requests feedback from the client and receives that feedback in a constructive way. So I think that's really the basis, being aware that we need feedback in order to improve, and the feedback is on the relationship between coach and client. So the client is the person who will give us feedback. Of course, sometimes clients are not very knowledgeable when it comes to what is a good coaching session or what is a coaching session in general. So sometimes you might get feedback from a client that says, well, but you didn't tell me what to do. Then that might not be feedback that you want to take on board, but you might reflect on it and think, maybe I didn't explain well enough what coaching is. Or maybe this is a client who could have profited from an advisory consulting session more than from a coaching session. So maybe I didn't vet the client well enough, where I didn't consult with the client well enough. That's really something where you monitors and reflects on the effectiveness of the whole process with your coaching knowledge and with your client. And then at practitioner level, you are requested to use a formal feedback process from the client, then also with stakeholders, and it says rigorous evaluation processes, and evaluates outcome with client and stakeholders, and has an own process for evaluating effectiveness as a mentor or coach. Now, I want to jump to senior practitioner right away, because at senior practitioner, it says critiques the diverse approaches to evaluation of mentoring and coaching. And that's what I would like to do at the moment a little bit, because this whole idea of evaluating outcome is very difficult, because you are not, as much as you might want to be, but you are not the only influence on the client's life. Life is happening. And there are other things. Maybe you're coaching someone who's on the verge of burnout. Well, he's not burnt out, because obviously you couldn't be coaching that, but who's feeling very down and who's always has low energy or something and wants to get more energy. And suddenly they fall in love and they're happily in this new love relationship. They're full of energy. Spring has sprung. And that has nothing to do with your coaching. It just happened. So now you say, what was the outcome of this coaching? He was very sad in the beginning. He was very energetic it has nothing to do with what you did. Sorry to say. So let's not overestimate ourselves. And if you look at psychotherapy research, and also how this has been brought into coaching research. So psychotherapy research, it's in Scott Miller and Duncan, and the Heart and Soul of Change, these meta studies figured out that client factors are actually the most important factors. Model of what the coach does, not so important. The relationship between coach and client, the most important aspect that you can control. There is much more that you cannot control about outcome than you can control. So, let's all take a humble pill a little bit, and I think in American, they eat a humble pie or something. I don't know, whatever you do, let's not overestimate ourselves, and let's be the best that we can be by looking at what we do through evaluation. Integrate feedback from the client, but also integrate feedback from the profession. So that's then at senior practitioner level, what critiques diverse approaches to evaluation of mentoring and coaching. One approach that I think is very useful is the feedback-informed treatment of Scott Miller, Deliberate and Reflective Practice, where you ask your client on different scales. So in therapy, they have the outcome scale and this outcome rating scale, ORS, and the session rating scale. So the session rating scale, in the last 10 minutes of every session, you have a couple of scales where you say, did you feel like we talked about the right thing? Did the method fit you? Did you feel respected and well taken care of, something like that? And overall, was this a good fit? So these are kind of 4 scales that you can ask. And what is important is that when the client gives you lower than a 9, you should talk about what needs to be better. Usually you think, okay, they gave me a 7, it's good enough. But if you look at the vast majority of people will want to be nice and they'll tell, oh, everything is hunky-dory. And so anything below a 9, you should actually ask, is there anything that we can do to make this relationship work even better? And don't take it on you as like, oh, I didn't know No, just, what can we do? And another thing that I know from these studies in psychotherapy is that clients that or psychotherapists whose clients rate a little lower and then improve seem to have better outcomes, in the sense that if the client feels they can be honest with you right from the beginning and mention, oh, but this and that, we could do different together, the relationship will improve. So basically, be honest, be humble, make sure that you and your client reflect on what is happening that is making this effective for the client, if you can at all know. Yeah, because it's very difficult, again, as I said, to relate what is happening to a session to an outcome. Anyway, at master practitioner level, we have the capability indicators of actively contributes in building knowledge on evaluating, mentoring, and coaching. So that's kind of the last discussion that we had, that I basically talked at you about, is really thinking about how can we use feedback, how can we use evaluations to improve the profession, to get better in collaborating with our clients, and then uses knowledge gained to comment on themes, trends, and ideas related to evaluation processes, mentoring, coaching processes, and client themes. So it is having even more a kind of bird's eye view of the situation and of what is happening in the profession. I think there is a lot that we can still learn, because we didn't used to be able to analyze these large amounts of data from coaching sessions. And now we have the possibility with artificial intelligence to maybe in the future relate what is happening to a session to at least how happy clients are, which again we can do it.
Direct correlation.
It's not a direct correlation, because again, there is a study by Scott Miller and others. I forget the others' names, so please forgive me, others, that I'm not mentioning you here, and I should, where they looked at customer satisfaction of clients, of friends, of psychotherapists, of doctors, and of psychics. And the psychics had a very high customer satisfaction. And what I know from Scott Miller is we shouldn't look at that with an eye of, oh, but the clients are wrong. No, we should be looking at what are the psychics doing that is still ethical, that we as helping practitioners can steal. What is it that's happening there that is really creating this high customer satisfaction? And not that I'm saying we should now start to use horoscopes or anything, but I think Dave Snowden told me in a podcast that we're going to be releasing that he once used a horoscope instead of an MBTI test, and everybody was very, very happy. Everybody was like, oh yes, yeah, and was able to use it as a conversation generator. So sorry to be a little bit on the maverick side today. I don't want to offend anyone. I think whenever two or more people get together and they are trying to be helpful to one another, probably there is going to be a good outcome. But reflecting on how can we make sure that what we are doing is ethical, has a chance of helping other people, doing that in collaboration with our clients, I think is super, super important, not only for our skill development, but also for our self-development. Staying humble, staying learning. Don't think you're the bee's knees, except if you are, maybe you are, I'm not, so.
And you know what I take from this this part of looking at evaluation, also the part of, first of all, making sure that we are aware of our well-being as coaches. How am I taking this evaluation? What is important for me? And the other element of, once I have an evaluation, is not about saying, oh my goodness, what have I done bad? Just tell me what all of those things. And oh, dear client, I'm really sorry I had it. But looking at what is it that we together in our relationship can do for you to have a better result, dear client. So how can the two of us better collaborate to actually get there, and looking at that side of the scale, and not looking at all of those things that the client might say, oh, this did not. And the other element that comes to my mind is linking these evaluations that we get from clients, or this feedback, or maybe an email that comes a day or two after. Or I think it's also relevant to look at once we get LinkedIn recommendation or any of those things, and maybe engage with a bit of reflective practice on those recommendations, and say, what are you actually learning from this feedback? What were the elements that the client is complementing? Hence, do more of that.
Exactly.
So see it also as a very good learning opportunity about ourselves as a coach, ourselves as a practitioner, and as a professional in general. Like you said, just about learning from all the other professions. What is it that supports client in defining and having this as a feel of a good outcome? So
Yeah, and if you use like evaluation to beat yourself up, then that's for sure not going to make you a better coach. Somebody who comes into a coaching relationship like, oh my God, what's the next question? That's not going to work. Then, it's going to detract from you being you, which is going to detract from you being able to relate, which is going to detract from the coaching relationship. So don't do that. You're a good person. You're trying to help another person. That's enough.
And I think the element that we keep on saying is, whatever you've done in that coaching situation and in that coaching session, probably the best thing that you could have done in that moment. Yes, there's a million other questions that you could have asked, but that's what you felt like that's the right thing to bring in that moment. And you did it with a complete desire to help the person in front of you.
And then if later you discover, oh my God, if I could have done something different, then you do that later, but you don't do that during the coaching session. You do it afterwards, and then you reflect, and then you learn, and then you become better. Yeah.
So that's how I see evaluation as an incredibly useful tool if we can think about it in relation to our learning and to supporting, now going back to the other standards, and supporting the clients' learning and insight. So,
Exactly.
thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you very much from this one. And I'll see you next time. And I think next time we're opening up a very nice topic, or not more than nice. Maybe I should use the word of thought, or people are searching for that kind of information right now, because team coaching is growing and growing. So we start looking at the first team coaching core competency. So keep an eye and see you next time. Thank you, Kirsten.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.